Hey, welcome to the Rafter K Rustics workshop. Before we get started today, I'm sorry, but I gotta vent about something. You see, I have this little dwarf peach tree that I'm awfully partial to. Now, when we were younger, there might have been better ways to wake up in the morning, but I'm getting in my 60s now, and I tell you what, you can't beat a peach fresh off the tree, a cup of coffee, and just sitting out on the deck and letting that warm sun soak into your sore old body. So you can see why it's so heartbreaking when you come in the evening and you see that peach out on the tree and you think, boy, tomorrow morning that thing is going to be perfect. Then you go out for breakfast in the stinking garden road and say, beat me to it. And it's gone. They eat up my vegetables. They gnaw holes in the freaking garden hoses. They crap in the feed trough. And I know a lot of people are watching saying, oh, watching the cute little furry creatures as they frolic in the trees and across the lawn, that just adds to the wonder of the day. Well, as my mom would have said, bless your hearts if you think that. Just look between their ears real close. They got these little devil horns. You don't believe me? Look at this trail cam video that my wife took a while back. The sick part of it is that if you look at that squirrel's crotchal area, you'll see that he ain't planning to eat that rat. He's got way different plans. They are sick, perverted demon creatures. Oh well. Thanks for listening. If anybody's got any ideas on what you can do to get rid of these stinking things, let me know in the comments. Go ahead and start today's video. You know, I was looking in the fridge today for something to make for supper, and it was a little sparse, and I was starting to think it was going to be another one of those soup poured over rice meals. And just by happenstance, I looked in the meat keeper and I found the guests of honor for the night's meal. The question was, how am I going to cook them? Because see, it's February, and I've been married a long time. But you know, one of the things about being married a long time is that you know you got to keep the romance alive. And what's more romantic than French cuisine? And that's a little tough because, you know, we had Creole just the other day and had chicken etouffee 2 nights ago. So, you know, if we're going to get any Frencher than that, we're going to have to go clean back to the motherland. We're going to skip Louisiana altogether. So I decided that we're going to turn tonight's guests of honor into Écurie Bourguignon. Écurie Bourguignon. You can hardly tell that I took German in high school, huh? And it served me well, by the way. German has served me beautifully. To this day, I can approach any woman named Helga, and I can ask her where she's going, and if she wants to drink lemonade with me. Watch this, watch this. Wohin geht's du jetzt, Helga? Trinkst du ein Limo mit mir? See? And that's just beautiful. And it hadn't done me real well with the ladies, but it has got me banned from parts of the food court. Apparently, the people at Hot Dog on a Stick have policies. Now, boys, if you get anything out of this video, well, it's pretty sad if you get anything out of this video, because I know what's going on in this video, but if you get anything out of it, I hope it's that cooking ain't rocket science. It ain't rocket science, ain't chemistry. If you don't have something that's in the recipe, don't worry about it. Substitute something that's similar or leave it out altogether. It may not taste as good, but it'll be fine. You know, just do with what you got and enjoy it. Now, in this case, I live in a pretty upscale neighborhood. And because of that, our stores carry all kinds of exotic meats. Like, for example, écurie. But your store may not carry it. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. You can make this same recipe with goat or rabbit or venison or chicken thighs. I even heard of people making it out of beef. So, you know, just use what you got. And one other thing, just a little heads up. When you buy your squirrel, your escargot at the store, make sure that if you can, that you get the wild caught or free range. You know, one thing, factory farmed squirrels have bigger, meatier quarters on them, but they just don't taste as good. And, you know, I think that's just, it's better food that they get when they're out running around. Now, in the case of these, there's another, it's a little bit of a thing that really bothers me. You can see that we got 3, looks like decent squirrels in here. And but they got this one little one here on the bottom covered up. I've been long on our butcher. You know, if you're going to put a little squirrel in there, I think you ought to have to leave the tail so we know that it had hair on it. And this is big enough, I'm pretty sure what it is. But yeah, just when you buy a coon, they leave the feet on so you know you're getting a coon. I don't know why they can't do something like that with squirrels, but now I'm not going to debone these little boogers because they just don't leave enough meat to eat. Besides, it's okay to pick it off the bone. So I am going to cut them into little sections though. I'm going to start here with this little puppy. So what we're going to end up with, we're going to cut it into, there's a hind quarter here, a hind quarter here. Here's a front quarter, another front quarter. We're just going to cut these at the joint like you do with a chicken or anything else. You got your little leg. You know, if you ever mess with chicken, you know, if you cook it, you'll realize this is, I mean, this looks like just a little chicken leg, huh? Here's a second one. We're going to get the shoulder. Another shoulder. Now, you're looking at this and you're probably thinking, there just isn't a whole lot of meat on those ribs, right? And you're probably right. The torso doesn't have a whole lot to it. But if you look on the inside here, there's a little tenderloin, and along the back, just like on a deer or on a cow or a pig or anything, you got some tenderloins. So we don't want to waste this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this puppy about in half. There. And these are going to go into a bag that's got some flour and some salt and pepper, and in my case I put some seasoning mix in there. It's just steak seasoning I buy at the store, but you also use Creole seasoning. I'm going to go ahead and cut the other 2 up. And now I know some of you purists out there are probably asking, Tim, what about the jowls? There's good meat on the jowls. Well, I'm pretty redneck, guys, but I'm not quite that redneck. I'm not going to mess with it. Besides that, when you buy them at the store, I think they use the heads for something else, like chicken nuggets or something. So now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up about a half of an onion. And I'm going to show you how to cut this stuff quickly and easily, but I'm going to warn you in advance. If you don't want to have to help out in the kitchen for the rest of your life, don't let Mama see you cutting stuff up like this. When she sees you do it, you got to be clumsy. You got to act like you don't know what you're doing. And in fact, if it really gets bad, you got to show up and when you're done with some band-aids on your fingers. Now remember this too, because women are smart. Always, always, again, always put the band-aid on the fingers that hold the stuff you're cutting. They're not going to fall for it if it's on the knife hand. So, we're going to start off, we're going to cut this onion in half. Then I'm going to cut the end of it off. We're going to peel back this paper part. Get over here. Now here's the good part. We're going to make a cut here, 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 just along there. And then, just like that. And the layers of the onion actually make the last cut for you. See, that's slicker. Now, I mean, that's pretty quick and easy, huh? So, next thing we're going to do is cut up the other vegetables we're going to use. We'll put in some jalapenos. Probably about, these are pretty big, so probably about 1.5 of them. And some mushrooms. We'll cut them up in a bit. There's also some other vegetables we're going to use. I like to put vegetables in my stews, so I got some Brussels sprouts, some collard greens, and some mustard greens here. The collard greens are the only thing that I can grow in my garden that the freaking rabbits and stuff won't eat. And the mustard greens just grow wild in the backyard. They're weeds, but they taste pretty good. So I know that in general jalapenos are not generally thought of in French cuisine, but frankly I like them. And if you're careful how you cut them, I'm just going to cut along, just cut the thin slice out, knock the little seeds out, and it's not hot at all. People worry about it. It isn't hot. No, it really isn't. I'm going to finish cutting this stuff up. While I'm doing it, kind of reminds me of an old story. There was a farmer that had a barnyard full of chickens, and running that barnyard was a rooster named Brewster. Now, Brewster, I said he ran the barnyard for a lot of years, but he was getting kind of long in the beak. He was getting a little old, and I don't know, maybe easy living, maybe just getting older, but he was losing a step. And the farmer realized that he was going to need to get himself a new rooster. So one day he pulled up in the barnyard with his pickup truck, opened the tailgate, pulled back this crate. When we opened it up, out stepped the meanest, biggest, nastiest looking rooster you ever saw in your life. If roosters got ink, this one would probably have a teardrop on his cheek and prison tats on his beak. I mean, he was nasty looking. And he stepped out on the tailgate and flicked a cigar butt halfway across the barnyard. And then he proceeded to stomp around and kick up dirt and make his presence known. Now, Brewster watched this and shook his head, and he thought to himself, bud, it's been a good run, but it looks like the end of it. So he walked up to the new rooster and he said, "Hey, my name's Brewster." He said, "Until about 2 minutes ago, I was the bull of the woods around here. I practically owned the barnyard. I ran the hens. I ran the farm. I was it. And I tell you for true, I'd fight you for it. But I know I'd lose. It's a gig worth fighting for, but I just know I don't stand a chance. Besides, the hens probably look at you and think you're better looking anyway. So, I would ask you to do me one favor." He said, I've been here doing this a long time, and I hate to just run off and have it end. So I'd appreciate if you'd make it look good." And the other rooster said, "Well, that seems reasonable enough. What do you want me to do?" And Brewster said, "What I'd like is if we could roll around in the dirt and squawk a bit, and then you could chase me around the barn a couple of times, and then I will leave with my dignity intact, and you'll have earned your right to run the barnyard and take care of all these hens." And the rooster said, "Yeah, that sounds good enough. Let's go." So they started bumping chests and flapping wings and stomping around and kicking. And then they started fighting and rolling around on the ground. And then Brewster jumped up and started running. And he was about halfway around the second time around the barn. And there's a kabam! And Brewster stopped and turned around. And that new rooster was nothing but a few feathers floating to the ground and some gore up against the barn wall. He looked up, and the farmer was breaking down his shotgun, and he looked at Brewster and he said, "Brewster, I just don't get it. That's the third rooster I brought in here in the last week, and every damn one of them was gay. The old rooster, he didn't have the tools. He didn't have exactly what he needed to get the job done, but somehow he figured out a way. That's how cooking works. Now, next thing to cut up is a couple of cloves of garlic. If you don't do this, if you don't cook a whole lot, that's what clove garlic looks like. It comes wrapped in a little piece of paper. Simplest way to do this is just whack it with the knife, flat side knife, and that knocks the paper loose. It gives us a couple of chunks of meat back in there. The next thing you're going to want to do is take your knife blade, set it the flat side down on it, and smack it with your hand. Now, I don't think you're dumb enough to hit the sharp part of the blade with your hand, but the legal department, being legal, they do think you're dumb enough. So just tell you this, don't hit the sharp part with your hand. So we're just going to smack it once like that. That smashes it down, and then we're going to take a couple of cuts, and we've minced up our garlic. And let's do this other one here. Oh crap. You know, one other thing, if you don't want to mess with cutting up garlic, you can always just buy it in a jar. It works just as good. So next thing we're going to do is cut up about 4 pieces of bacon. You cut it into fairly smallish pieces, but it's going to cook down anyway. You know how bacon works. Next thing we're going to put in is some of these sun-dried tomatoes. They come in olive oil, it looks like. Sun-dried tomatoes they're very concentrated, rich flavor to them that I like a lot. A little expensive, but we're making hot French cuisine here. We can afford to splurge a little. If you don't have these though, or not available to you, just use some, a couple of spoonfuls of tomato paste. That works fine. I imagine that's probably what's generally used. I just like these things. I'm going to go ahead and cut them up a little bit smaller than they are. Here we go. And the other 2 things that are left for the dinner, well, I'll cut the collard greens up and the mustard greens. The other 2 things that are left are some beef broth and some burgundy wine. This is another case where I had to settle because the store didn't have broth d'échaudé. I'm going to have to quit using that crappy French accent. It's kind of fun to play with, but I'm sure that I'm going to get letters from the anti-Francophobia squad or something for picking on French people. So forgive me, we'll just call it Squirrel and stuff from now on. So I got beef broth instead of the squirrel broth. And if you watch cooking shows, the chefs will often tell you should never cook with wine that you don't drink. And in my case, that would limit it an awful lot because I don't really like wine that much. So I have a better way of picking my cooking wines. You go to the store and you look here, here, here. No, you look all the way on that bottom shelf. This whole bottle of wine was like $6.99. And it's going to taste just as good as anything else by the time it cooks down into the food. Alright, so welcome to the kitchen. First thing we're going to do, we're going to put the bacon in the skillet here. We're going to brown up some bacon. Now, stir it up, separate it out a little bit there. Alright, so bacon looking like it's pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and put it in the cooking pot. Grease down just a tadly bit. So now we're ready to start browning the squirrel in the bacon grease. So we're going to put these pieces in, shake the flour off of them, and we're going to just brown them on all sides. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, because I'd like to have supper sometime tonight. Batches there. Go ahead and start the pot. I'm going to go ahead and put a little oil in here. I use olive oil. But like I said, is it chemistry? Is it rocket science? No. Use what kind of oil you got, what kind you like. In this case, I got some olive oil, so I'm going to go ahead and dump the onions, the garlic, the carrot, and the jalapenos in there. We're going to hold off on the mushrooms for a little bit because if you put them in too early, they just kind of cook away to nothing. They're not worth having around anymore. And I'm not sure why, but I'm not going to put the tomatoes in until the other stuff's browned up a little bit. Now one trick that you might want to do is, and this depends. We go back again to the idea, if you want to cook a lot, if you don't mind doing it, then don't worry about it. But if you don't like cooking, you don't want to be asked to help out in the old kitchen, don't worry too much about making a little bit of a mess. You know, if you need to throw some flour around, get some grease on the stove, leave some vegetable peels around. You know, you want Mom to appreciate the fact that you did the effort and you tried to cook her some supper. But, you know, if there's a mess that she has to clean up when it's done, she may not want you doing it too often. So, alright, looks like the last of the legs are getting browned up nice and pretty. That's nice. In fact, you know, if I was having company over like my boss or something, I would make these and only leave the body part out and just tell them that this is Cornish game hen leg quarters. Very pretty. Put those in there. Brown up a little more while I'm doing this. Put you in there. Oh, almost forgot. Gotta get the tomatoes in there. Turn this down a little bit. Next thing we're going to add is our wine. Supposed to sniff the cork, I'm not sure, but I don't have one. And dump that in there. This is now we'll do that. Believe it or not, that's going to clean all the little crispies off the pan so that they don't get wasted, because there's a lot of flavor in those little fried crispies. We're going to put about the same amount of our beef broth in there. Give or take. Clean all them little crispies off. And then dump that in the pot. There we go. Shut that off. Back now. Move this over here. There we go. Now here's one thing I forgot. Me not being a professional. And that is that this is supposed to be kind of herby tasting, which means it needs herbs in it. case you can use what you like. Something like this, I like thyme a lot. It's kind of fresh and it's not too strong a flavor. I get this out of my garden. All you gotta do is just strip the leaves off of it. It's pretty mild. It's not a whole lot of trouble to it. Now this little booger here is called rosemary. And rosemary tastes really good. I like rosemary. But it can be a little bit pungent. It can be a little strong. So what we're going to want to do is take about, I don't know, maybe that much of it. And I'm going to cut that up real small. Because when you go to eat this stuff and you bite into a whole rosemary leaf, it will wake you up. Chop that up into real fine. Get some more of this. This other one here is oregano. It grows out there as well. Now, look, I'm being kind of uppity with my fresh herbs and just I'm almost like Rachel Ray or something here. You don't need fresh herbs. In fact, you don't really need herbs at all. All you need, I mean, you can use them if you want to. If you don't have any, don't worry about it. If all you got is dry, just use the dry. We'll go ahead and sprinkle those in. And let me put a little. Remember one thing though, if you use dry, just don't use quite so much. Well, you can't see it, but I added in the greens and the Brussels sprouts, and they're just about covered up with the juice, with the liquid. Now, I'm not going to put away my broth and my wine because after a little while, the juice is going to cook down. Right? We're not going to cover this pot. In fact, I want the liquid to evaporate out. At that point, you might be thinking, well, just what do? You add water to it, right? If it gets too thick. Well, that's one way to do it. I'm not going to do that though. Instead, when the water cooks out, I'm going to add some more broth and some more wine. And what happens then is that you start concentrating those flavors. And the more you do that, the stronger the taste is, the richer it is. So we're going to just kind of watch it. I'm going to add in some, mostly broth at this point though, until for probably an hour, a little over, until the meat's cooked and it's starting to come off of the bone. Well, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes, and I've had to add the broth and wine a couple of times to keep the liquid up, but it's cooked down pretty well. And if you look at right now, the legs, the meat's just starting to fall off of the bone. So now we got a couple of things left to do. First, we're going to put the mushrooms in the pot. They will take just a few minutes to cook. That wouldn't have gone well. Now, when you serve this stuff up, a lot of times they'll serve it on top of mashed potatoes or rice, or you could even do it on couscous if you want to get all fancy. But I got something even better, I think. This is something I discovered a while back. So what I did is I made some cornbread mix. If the Jiffy people would sponsor me, I would tell you what company I use, what brand it is. But since the Jiffy company hasn't sponsored me yet, I guess I'll just keep that hidden. The box calls for the cornbread, an egg, and a third of a cup of water, or a third of a cup of milk. I don't keep milk around anymore. You know, I've gotten kind of a little bit older, and we replaced the Captain Crunch with oatmeal now, so we just don't keep it around. So instead of a third of a cup of milk, I just added an extra egg and a little bit of water. And I chopped up another jalapeno real small. Yeah, I think you can see it in there maybe, I don't know. But that's what it looks like. You know, kind of that consistency. What we're going to do now is take this in spoonfuls and put it up on top. Mushrooms up in there a little better. We're going to put spoonfuls of this up on top, kind of like you would when you're making chicken and dumplings or something, only this is with cornbread mix. There. And there. All right. So now for the first time we're going to cover the pot. And we're just going to leave it cook for about another 15 or 20 minutes until the cornbread is firm up on top. Once the cornbread gets cooked on top, then it's done all the way through. So look now, I can punch on it and it's pretty firmed up on top. Supper, my friends, is ready. So all that's left is, as we in the business call, to plate our dinner. We'll cut me off some of the cornbread. As you can see, we got some of the various little squirrel pieces. Looks beautiful. Got some of that gravy. Couple of Brussels sprouts. There's another leg quarter there. I do think that I am ready. I'm going to let this cool off though just a little bit because let's be real. There's not much that's less manly than blowing on your food before you eat it, or when you take that big mouthful of scalding something when you try and blow it off and cool it in your mouth. So we're going to let it cool off a little bit and then we'll give it a try. So while I'm waiting for this to cool off, the producer just handed me this piece of paper here. It's a letter. He says it's something I got to read. And you know what? I should have known before I ever did it that I was going to have to pay a price. Turned into a place that doesn't have a sense of freaking humor anymore. So this is a letter from the law offices of Skeeter P. Snively, Esquire. And it says, "Dear Sir, it is imperative that you read the following statement to your viewers to prevent irreparable harm to and further legal action on the behalf of my client, the farmer, in your rooster story." So here's what I'm supposed to read. "Dear redneck gourmet guy, I am the farmer in the rooster story you told earlier in your show. I don't want folks thinking I shot the gay rooster because I am homeopathic or something like that. I am a farmer. I can't keep animals around what don't earn their keep. Even the cats in the barn ain't there as pets. They eat rats, what eat feed and crap on stuff. As to the chickens, hen's job is to lay eggs and make chicks. Rooster's job is to lay hens, so they lay more eggs. If a hen stops laying, she gets depressed and might fall off her perch and break her neck and become delicious. So it's important that you have a rooster to service the hens and protect their mental health. A gay rooster just ain't going to be interested in doing the job." Okay, I guess he got me there. "On the other hand, seasoned good and cooked low and slow, gay roosters is pretty tasty. Signed, the farmer in the rooster story." So, I guess that's where we've gotten to. Anyway, let's see how this tastes and call it a night, huh? Oh, that's hot. Crap.